Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Mikel from the Next Tape Podcast. I'd like to just share a special message before we get to this episode. This is our first Women History Month episode. Sadly, we couldn't do a Women History series because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to women in general, women workers, women leaders, women, etc. But I think you guys will find this episode really educational. I'd like to give the shout outs to the women who were on this episode, including my co-hosts, Tanyka, Sharon, and Romona. Thank you for your time, for being on this episode. You guys did a great job asking my questions, every single question that was on my, little piece of paper. So, shout outs to them. Great job, guys. So, you guys that support the Next Tape Podcast will enjoy this episode. So, let's get on to the episode right about now. What's up, everyone? This is the Next Tape Podcast, episode 23 with Mikel and
Tanyka,
where we have conversations on different topics. So this is a very special episode. This is our Women's History Month episode, and we have special guests on this episode. We have Romona once again. If you haven't, known her, we invited her through our previous episode where we talked about Trudeau and Indigenous. And also a couple of years ago, she did an interview with CBC, the Current podcast. So how are you doing, Romona?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
That's cool. So Tanyka, will you introduce your guest?
Yes. So everyone, I have Sharon, who's one of my friends. If you listen to my other podcast, she's been on the Love is Blind podcast with me. We've worked together very briefly, unfortunately. So hi, Sharon.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
So how's everybody doing, by the way?
Good.
Doing good. Yeah.
Good? That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Are you ready for a barrage of questions for this Women's History Month?
Yeah. I'm personally super excited to hear what you have to say and stuff, because this is complete.
Okay. I'm just gonna give you the number one question. So, what can men do to help achieve equality? Anybody can answer this.
Not be misogynist.
I mean, I feel like that's a loaded question. Like, you want to, give me a little bit more details as to what exactly you want to know.
I mean,
about?
like such as workplace, etc., or what can they do to.
I think it really depends on the man that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're kind of dealing with more old school lawyers, which you, for example, in my case, because obviously I work in a law firm, but when you're dealing with old school lawyers, because you tend to, depending on how long they decide to not retire,
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are kind of can have that attitude of, this is a woman's job, which is being an assistant, even using some of the particular lingo like legal secretary. That's something you don't use anymore. It really just depends on who you're dealing with. And for example, my boss, who we'll just refer to as JC, that's usually what we do when me and Sharon are talking. He's not the kind of person who doesn't value me as his assistant or doesn't he has the attitude of, I would not survive without my staff. And it's not just me, there are other people, depending on what he's doing, that work for him too, or help him with stuff.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so it really just depends on who you're dealing with. But if you're dealing with men who have this air about them that are like, oh, you know, a woman's job is in the kitchen, or a woman's job is raising kids, well, then that's a whole other situation that they need to deal with. But I don't know how easy it is to change that, because a lot of that is their makeup, a lot of that is how they're raised, a lot of that is just that we're gonna try and maybe not to swear on this episode, but or at least I'm gonna try not to swear on this episode. They're really just a-holes, and you can't really change that. So
I mean, nicely said, Tanyka.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, like to piggyback on what she's saying, I'd say just like, if you really don't know where to start, like go back to the basics. Like it just maybe being adaptable to change,
Right.
and flexible in terms of your own, you know, thoughts and awareness of certain situations. So, you know, Tanyka saying like sometimes it could be very traditional in certain workspaces, based on their age or their upbringing. And so going back to just the basic of, you know, learning the new language, and being open to kind of reassess and relearn their, you know, unconscious biases, and bringing that out to the table. So for example, a lot of times when I'm working with like male coworkers, or, you know, they're like a little bit superior than me, they're kind of, it's just the language we always use is like, I'm working for you. And then like just recently I finally have like a female like senior that I'm like that's on my team, and I kept saying the language like, oh, I tell people like, oh, like I'm working for you, or I'm doing this for you, and she's like, no, you're working with me. Like this seniority doesn't matter. Like we're all doing the same job. You're working with me, not for me. We're just in a team, and like, yeah, the structure's like this for admin reasons, but with. And I was like, whoa, like I'd never really considered it like that. So like language plays a huge role. And, you know, just being aware of that and just more consciously aware of such situations you're doing, and the changes that are continuously happening. Like we're always learning. So to be open to learning.
Also, Sharon, just as a quick, I'm going to add to that a little bit too, but obviously you don't have to say the name, but are you talking about who I think you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is it? It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, also just to kind of add on to that, like there's not a lot of people like that. I think a lot of, just to kind of put context here, the person she's talking about actually worked at my firm too. And I think a lot of the people at our firm has that kind of attitude about them. But to add on to also what you said, I feel like there's the fact of, yeah, you're working for me because that's my file, right? It's also an ego trip, I think, a lot of times for some lawyers. But I also think you're also transitioning from articling to being a lawyer as well. So there's also that transition for you as well, just to kind of put that out there as well. And I think it's also for you, it's like you're trying to be like, okay, well, this is not just me working for like one person because I'm articling anymore. I'm working with someone now because I'm a freaking lawyer now, which is a huge thing. So I think there's also that as well. And for those who don't understand what articling means, basically student at law, which is that last step you have to do before you get called to the bar. But yeah.
Okay. All
right.
Learn a lot here. Romona, do you want to add to that? Or
I agree with both the ladies. Like I'm in the same position and I agree with them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So All right. I do agree that, we men tend to be egotistic when it comes to, workplace environments. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, question number 2. How do you succeed in a male-dominated environment?
Sharon, I feel
Damn.
like this is kind of a question for you.
How do I succeed? I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, because like Tanyka mentioned, and for your audience, some context about my background. I was a student for like the longest time. I was a student in law, so I basically hid behind the label of being a student. And so this is like my first official year. I think it's been only 4 months that I'm like officially a lawyer and like, have control of my own, workload. So, it's hard, just because of what we previously touched upon, that in our career, a lot of the lawyers and staff are very traditional, just because, they stay in the game for a really long time. And so it's really hard to navigate that, because you're new. And so you're trying to stay within, your limits. But then you're also trying to, fight this inner battle that no one really knows about except like women. And it's a struggle because it all stems from like an imposter syndrome. So you have that just because you're like a student, now you're like a official professional lawyer. And then also because you're a female in this like male dominant career. And then on top of that, it is just like the work itself is also, you're like always learning until you're 6 years old. So you always feel new. You always feel like a newbie. You always feel like there's more you could do. So do I really have an answer to that? I don't know, because I'm still trying to navigate that. It honestly depends on the environment you're in. Certain situations, like ratio wise, like if I'm like one female out of like 10 lawyers, like I'm going to feel intimidated. I'm going to feel like I'm not able to express my feelings or bring up certain situations, or feel like I'm being related to, in terms of like, I'm having this experience at this courthouse. And then they're like, well, we don't even know what you're talking about. Or sometimes when you see them interact with other female lawyers who are not part of the office or the firm, you're just like, oh, wow, damn. Like I don't know if that kind of seemed like a little bit of bullying. And then it's just like, I can't bring that up. How do I bring that up? I don't know. So Tanyka, you've been in this game for longer than I have, so maybe you have more insight.
I mean, yeah, I'm coming from a different perspective too, because obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I've worked with lawyers for the better part of 10 years. But again, I feel like that for me it's different. But I do look at the whole. I want to go kind of back here. Like the fact that women are lawyers, it's something that you just didn't see at particular points in life. It was always men are lawyers, while the women are the ones are the staff. And that, to me, I wanted to say something about that. Like, that is amazing. But I do even look at like where I've been, like where I am right now, and look at the fact that there's not a lot of female lawyers even where I am. And I'm talking because we have multiple offices, so I'm going to mainly focus on my office. But I mean, even if I looked at a whole before things happened, we didn't have a lot of female lawyers, which is actually a little mind-boggling to me when I think about it. I think at one time only ever had one lawyer who was a woman.
Yeah.
At one time. Like, we didn't have one before the other left, and it's just, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever like suggested any like changes?
Well,
Can you guys suggest anything?
I'm not a person that would ever feel I have the right to go to my manager and say, we should have more female lawyers. I've been here a long time, but I haven't been here that long that I have the right to do that. And no, we don't have the right to do that. I'm just there to do my job. That's what I'm there to do. I feel that respect from my boss, but like, and I'm not saying that I don't feel the respect from my company. I do, but I don't have that right to say anything about that, because I think it just really depends. I mean, even having articling students that were women, honestly, I was shocked, Sharon, that both you and another person who we won't name for multiple reasons, you understand, I was shocked that we had 2 female articling students. In the time that I've been here, I've never seen that.
I mean, maybe they low-key like are recognizing,
let the women do the work.
No, like the ratio, like they've been like,
maybe.
Okay, like,
but then again, that was all during a time that we were not going to be hiring any of you guys back, right?
Yeah.
With everything was happening within the firm, but it's just like, I just never seen that before. Not to say that I didn't love the ones that came before. Like, obviously, we've hired articling students to be lawyers after, and I'm sure, Sharon, you know who I'm talking about, at least with one of them. But it's just like, yes, I love them. It's great. But it's just like, I've just never seen that before, even if one of them was an absolute nightmare. But anyway, but it's just,
Are some of the men like, allies in you guys' workplace, or?
My boss is amazing.
Okay.
My boss is absolutely amazing. Honestly, there's
other than your boss, what about?
There's no lawyers. Okay. I'm fortunate in my place with what we have left that the men are amazing. They are. They really are. And that is something you don't see in every law firm or every company. You don't see that. But I mean, we definitely have seen examples of men be assholes. I'm sorry, I ended up swearing. It is what it is. We've actually had men be assholes. And Sharon, I'm sure again, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just,
I think like, I think as a whole, like if I'm talking about like my entire professional resume, and every space I kind of worked in, it's kind of tough to just be like, oh, like, have you, like, if you see an issue, have you spoken about the issue? Have you brought it up? Or have you, like, recommended any changes? I think it really depends on the person as well, because I've been in situations and spaces where females are just like, I'm tired of doing all the work. And, like, I'm saying this and I'm reaching out, I'm like, expressing the problem. But then I can't also be the problem. I can't also be the person who's finding the solution, who's maintaining the solution, who's promoting the preventions. Like having that, a lot of times when you bring it up, they're just like, okay, help me find the problem, like help me find the solution. And it's just like, I don't want to be carrying all that work, plus my workload, plus my other areas of of struggles in life. Like some people are just like, so burnt out to the point they're just like, I'm just gonna go there to work. I recognize the problems and like I'm just tired of always bringing it up, and I'm just gonna go home and take care of myself. So a lot of times that's also an issue where it's with any struggle or any oppression a certain person's feeling, if you bring it up, you're usually the one who has to find the solution. And to continuously do that all the time, it's draining.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know exactly what Sharon is talking about, but I feel like I do at the same time. I'm just gonna go wild guess. But I think with that too, kind of being a person who was seeing that kind of going on, and like we don't have to go into any details, but basically, let's just say Sharon said quite a bit as to what was going on that I know about. And the thing is, too, it's like, if, like, God, I hate that because I'm like, you shouldn't be left alone to figure that out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason it's happening is because of technically, really and truly, of an error that the higher ups made. And you shouldn't have to be left alone to kind of figure that out. Now, you kind of will have, like, for example, I was going to the quote unquote higher up and saying, we need to do something because this is ridiculous. You're overloaded, or whoever is overloaded, we need to do something about it. And I agree with you, Sharon, not much was done to kind of combat that. It's not like he wasn't aware. He knew. But it's like, what do you do? And that's, sorry, that's a horrible experience, but
Yeah.
but
I mean,
I
I would
understand it.
Yeah, for sure. And like what I was saying was like in a broader, like in every like professional space I've been in,
Yeah.
like even academic spaces, it's like the same thing. And like I see that pattern, you know, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely have seen that too with my resume as well. If you look at mine, like, I think like my first job, but that was kind of the same thing. Like, and again, unfortunately, like, I know we're trying to highlight women here, but the issues that I had in my first job was actually with a woman who I worked closely with, who I guess was upset that I no longer could work for them. I had to go and do other things because the job just didn't allow for me to keep working with them. And I guess she was upset. And that's not on me. That's on the workload that's available. That's on technically your boss, because I worked for clerks in my first job. So that's your boss. That's him. He's the one that's in charge of that, not me. And she made my life a living hell until she was the one that got fired. But at the same time, it felt like until that happened, it was like I was the one that had to kind of figure out a solution. When I'm the one that was kind of, in a sense, to be truly honest with you, being harassed by her. And I'm just like, what do you want me to do about it? All the things that you're complaining about that I'm not doing right, you had no issues with before I wasn't working for you. So it was the weirdest thing. You know, not great.
Okay. Ramona's on be our back right now, so
Okay.
I'm going to ask her the same question. Okay, she's back. So
Okay.
Romona, how do
Yes.
you exceed in a male dominant environment? I know you work at a
So in my, don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
My field, I'm in both. So I'm in healthcare. I work for 2 agencies in a retirement home in Toronto, and as well as the agency in Markham. And aside from my healthcare job, I do work in retail, so Old Navy. And honestly, it's like I mentioned, like it's hard for me to chime in on this particular question because most of my managers are women, and most of my higher ups are nurses that are also women. So
That's interesting.
I don't really have much male managers.
Have you ever deal with something like that in the past, or
Honestly, no. But I know it's around, right? Like having a male manager, there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of like male characteristics, especially when it comes to women being more independent and being able to do certain roles, the same roles that men can do. But right now, in this particular question, no.
Okay. So how do you feel about hearing both Tanyka and Sharon's experiences?
Crazy. It's a tough world, honestly. And my heart's out for them.
Okay. All right. So third question. What would you change about the assumptions made by men of women?
What kind of assumption?
Yeah.
Like, say, how men look at women, like basically, like objects.
Okay. I mean, again, fortunately, I'm in a relationship where my partner does not see me as an object. But of course, I have been in situations where men have seen me as objects. And I don't know if you can change a man's thought process. I also think that depends on where they are in life. And if you're dealing with men that don't want to be in a relationship, don't, want anything more than to have fun, to put it PG, if those are the kind of men you're dealing with, which I think for the most part, a lot of women have either dealt with or either are okay with because they're also in places where they don't want to deal with relationships. I think again, it also depends on where you're at as a woman, but I think it's hard to change that because, and again, like watching, like Love is Blind, for example, Sharon, when you have like certain people on Love is Blind, in particular, we have one person right now who is very much like, oh, my dad was suave, my dad was this, my dad was that, but his dad was a cheater and cheated on his mom. And you kind of see like he's kind of also mirroring that because we found out that his dad would actually take him on quote unquote trips where he was cheating on his mom. He would see these things. So it's like when you're also being raised to see, oh, this is okay. That's a psychopathy that is even harder to change than just you being a player and wanting to play the game. That's totally different. So I think it just really depends on everything with men and where there are, like, even my partner. Like, I never say he would ever have treated me as an object. That's not true. He never did. But he went through phases. I've known this man for almost 7 years. When I met him, he wasn't ready for where he's at now.
Right.
And that reflected itself. So it's just, I think it really just depends on where men are at. But again, here I'll say this too. If you are a man who's like, I just want to have fun, I don't want to be in a committed relationship, I'm not ready for that, it's fine. But just remember that women are not here to be your playground. We're not here to be at your beck and call. That is not something you just automatically are given. That's something you earn. Doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in. Like, in those days in my life, like, a man wasn't just given that, It was earned. And if you mess up, well, then you're not going to get it. You're going to have to find someone else. So, yeah, I think it just really depends on men and where they're at.
Do you think men nowadays watch too much like pornography?
Oh, 100%.
And then just see that in women?
I feel like that particular thing is freely used, especially on Twitter, X, whatever. And it's at a point where it is too much that I had to block it, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The fact that this, I don't know, maybe my algorithms are different, or maybe you're in the time where this is what it is right now, but there is way too much happening in that atmosphere to be too much right now. Like, this is off topic, but I don't know if you realized the other day the OBB pulled over someone doing it in a car and causing a crash.
Yes, and wasn't he a child? Like,
he was 21.
Yeah, and he was looking at like child abuse. My coworker just showed me that the other day, actually.
It's mind blowing how like all of it. It's yes, the world is scary. There's also nice parts of the world, but this particular thing is getting out of line.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm an advocate for, like, my boyfriend is 100% allowed to watch pornography. I don't care. Do what you gotta do. I'm okay with that. But I think there's actually a fine line between it's just something that you're using because, you know, whatever, or you're then starting to mirror it. Because, y'all, spoiler alert, if you don't know, porn's not real. So it's just, I think when men start to use what they see and apply that to their own sex life, that's the problem too. And also, if you're doing it in a car, like, okay, now that's a sex addiction. Something's wrong here. And you're just sick because you're looking at child abuse. But, like, that becomes a problem. And I've, like, maybe this is TMI, but I had a situation where a man in one particular situation that I won't say, but he literally was like, oh, like, when you're doing that, look up at me. And I'm like, wait, you're using a situation where that's what they do in porn. And you want me to do the exact same thing because what, you think it's real? Like, it's situations like that. Like, if you're using porn to kind of be like, let's spice up our sex life, if you're in a relationship or whatever, that's okay to a certain extent. But if you're using it to be like, this is what I want because that's hot, like, then there's a problem. There's a problem.
Right?
That's funny. Yeah. And the way how you said it, it's funny.
Well, I mean, seriously though, because I have encountered men that are like, oh, I want to do that or whatever. And it's just like, are you being for real? Like, no. Like, no, you're not. You're dumb. No.
Sharon, you want to piggyback on that or no?
I mean, I'll keep it simple. Like,
Right.
I agree with the ladies here, and like, if you're my friend, I'm so for real. Like, I will say it how it is, and I'll put you in your place. But like, if you're just like socially, like, just a person I meet, and you have this kind of like assumption and I see it, like, I don't have any tolerance for you. Like, it's just like, bye. Like, Google is free, you know, go do your research, go fix yourself. Like, I'm not here to help you at this stage in my life. I'll help my friends because I love them, but any other person, I'm just like, not my problem.
All right, so we have question number 4 here. So why haven't we achieved equality despite declarations in place in regarding pay? So why haven't we achieved that for women, such as pay between men and women?
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, Romona, go ahead.
Speaking. Honestly, like, I think it's, I personally think it's tradition. I feel like the world or society feels like men should always be top tier, and they just hate when women are above them. And most times, I could be wrong, CEOs, men that are higher ups, I want to say, despise women. And that's my point of view. I could be wrong though.
I mean, I definitely agree with the fact that I think it's tradition, the fact that men think that they're the breadwinners, so they have to be the ones making more money. But I think it also just depends on the job you're doing. Like, obviously, I'm not going to make more than a lawyer. I mean, I should. I'm just saying. But
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with nurses and doctors, right? Like, nurses make so much less, but they do so much.
just do so much more.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for validating me. But that's exactly it. It's just like I said before, my boss would not survive without me. I've made him say it. True story.
Right.
You're laughing, Sharon. I actually prompted him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to." Good job. But I should be making more. I'm doing so much, but obviously with this how it is, those are the pay brackets. I'm not going to make more than a lawyer. But, and again, in the job that I do, like, a lot of us, again, are women. A lot of the support staff is women. We did have one male clerk, but with all the changes within my firm, he's now gone. So it's just women. And that's a harder thing. But when you are like a lawyer, I am curious to know, like, you know, would a senior male lawyer and a senior female lawyer be making the same? I don't know. And the thing is harder because you're technically not supposed to talk about your salary with others and all that. You're not supposed to compare notes. You're not, I mean, I think a lot of us probably have. I know I have to some extent, but it's you're technically not supposed to. So it's really hard because it's just like, how would you know? Like, am I really making less doing the exact same job as someone else who has the same experience as me? Like, but again, like if you have a company, like even my firm, if you have a company that's like aware to some extent of certain things, like I've seen it happen, like when my place was trying to decide, you know, is my boss and the other person who's now works with you, Sharon, they did not put either of them as partner because I think one or the other, they didn't want them to be a partner. I'm not sure how that went, but they didn't want to name one of them a partner, but it would have made things awkward because they both started at the same time. Their year of call was the same, so they had the same experience. And it's just like, oh. And as soon as she left, within a year or so, my boss was my partner. So it's like, oh, but why wouldn't you make her partner though? What was going on there to think that she couldn't be partner? And I always think about that. Like, I'm happy my boss is partner. I'm happy that he achieved that. But at the same time, I do think, well, why couldn't she though? Like, what am I missing? It's just like, why couldn't she? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how else to answer that question other than and what I said.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the problem is that it's very surface level. Like, they make you believe and think in a lot of traditional spaces. They make you think and believe that like the conversation is happening and it is open, but it's still so very taboo in traditional spaces. And like when I say traditional spaces, I'm saying like more of what like millennial workspaces, millennial people, where like I feel like I'm making this assumption, I could be entirely wrong, but I feel like where maybe there's more Gen Z employees and employers or something, the conversation's actually more authentic or genuine.
Gen Z or Gen X?
Gen Z.
Like,
Gen Z, I think. Gen
like
Z.
the 20-ish people?
Yeah.
Gen Z,
Okay.
yeah, Gen Z. Gen Z is the new generation. Yeah.
No, I know. I just wanted to be sure she meant that, but
Yes. And then,
okay.
so, because like I know in my space, it's still very taboo with the more like experienced seniors, where the newbies, the new juniors that started, they try to kind of have that conversation, but it just didn't go well because people just didn't know how to keep a secret. But so I think it's in traditional places is like surface level and it's still very taboo. So for example, like I literally don't know what anyone else is making, female, male, junior, senior. I just there's no opportunity. I don't know who to trust to kind of have that conversation with, because I don't want someone, because I know an example where it happened to a friend of mine,
Right.
where they were sharing their like what they're making, and that person then went to like a partner to be like, oh, this person told me how much they're making, or is kind of like just being too too pushy. Like I guess I don't know what he was saying, but he basically like snitched on my friend. And my friend got in trouble. Like, why are you sharing your salary? Why are you sharing so much information? Like, keep that private. Some blah, blah, blah. Got in trouble.
Which I never, like, I mean, I know that, like, you're not supposed to, like, even the conversation I had,
yeah,
with my friend who no longer works at my firm, but when we had the conversation, because we both, me and her, started the same job and whatever, the difference was I would have made less than her when I first started, and a significant amount. And I'm just like, and I was doing more than her. A lot was taken away from her because she was screwing up. But I'm just like, wait, what? Like, that pissed me off, honestly. And she was pissed off for me, but I can't go to my manager and be like, how the hell is she making more than me? Like, I can't do that.
no,
And you're technically not supposed to talk about your salary, but at the same time, it's like, but it's my salary.
yeah.
If I want to talk about my salary, then that's my business.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think like, the thing is, you still can do that. You just can't compare. So like,
you could. But how do you do
could,
that then?
well, basically, I'll tell you how, because this is how I had to do it.
Okay.
Obviously, find someone who you could trust to have this like open conversation. Okay, that's struggle number one. Find someone you trust in a workspace. You hear, like, you obviously know how their workload is. You kind of see it, or you guys speak about it, and then you see how much they're making, or you hear based on what they're telling you how much they're making. Then you're like, okay, so technically this person has. Then you kind of have to look at it, like, not on a personal level now. It's just like, okay, this person has this experience, comes with this type of resume, and is doing this now in this workplace, and is making this amount, which is either significantly more or less. And if it's less, then you're just like, okay, well, I'm doing more, and so mine should be more than this, not equal to. And then, or you could just be like, if they're making more, then you're just like, okay, well, I'm doing 10 times more than that. And then you go based off that. You're saying, okay, based on my yearly review, based on, like, what I see, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. And on a general aspect, someone who's doing XYZ is making, like 110. And, I'm making 95. So I believe that I should be on 110, or whatever the case may be. That's when they're like, okay, this person's, okay, you're negotiating, we'll go down to 100. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take it, or don't take it. It's up to you. But you got to negotiate in that aspect. But you can't bring it up in terms of, like, this person is making this much, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put someone under the bus. That's when they're like, oh, like, no, that's not even a valid reason or argument. Like, and also, like, why are you sharing that information? And then probably get a worse salary. So,
and that's what I did the first time that I actually attempted to get a salary, like a significant salary raise. That's why I had that conversation with my friend, because we did the exact same job, and whatever. And I used that, and I'm like, okay, well, she made X. I'm currently making X. I want to try to get to, like, this number roughly. And I just went in and, like, said, listen, still making the salary based on if I was still doing reception. I'm doing more. My workload is still growing. And that's basically what I went in with. Like, I didn't go in saying, oh, well, she makes this. Like, you can't do it that way. But yeah, like, I just don't. In the scenario you gave with your friend, was it because they were trying to get a raise, or was this person just snitching, to snitch and to be?
No, this, like, my friend had good intentions in terms of, like, I want you to know, like, what I'm making as, like, a student. So then if you're being lowballed.
Okay.
And then also based on that, we know how much we would want to ask for once we're not a student and we're actually professionals.
Okay. So they were trying to get a raise, and that's the way they went in with it, by saying, oh,
no, this person snitched as in, like, how dare he tell me how much he's making? Like, like that. Got it. No, like, oh, this person's making this much, I want to make that much too. This person literally went to the boss and was like, yeah, so this, my, like, like, Bob came and told me how much he's making, and I didn't ask or, intended to know. So, like, why is he doing that? And then
that's why you can't tell people anything.
Yes, you can't even help people.
No.
Like, he was trying to help.
No,
It's crazy.
no, you can't tell people anything.
We kind of went off topic here, but
A little bit.
It's all good. It's all good, everyone. So how do we solve this issue? I know this issue goes beyond just like, workplaces. It even goes on to entertainment too. So like,
Yes, it's huge in entertainment.
yes. So-
Again, I don't know, especially with entertainment. Like that's a scope that I can't touch. But I feel like maybe the only thing that can fix that is there must be some maybe sort of change happening within the federal government. But again, like I don't know exactly what that would be, how that would happen. I don't know. But in terms of entertainment, maybe that's something y'all need to figure out. That's exactly it. Like you will have like example like Jim Carrey making like whenever he was really doing movies, making like I don't know $1 million, and then you have like Jennifer Aniston. I don't know, but I'm using an example.
Let's give an example. Samuel L. Jackson, 20 million. There you go.
I just gave an example. It doesn't have to be an exact number.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be an exact number. It's just let's shush. When you have Jim Carrey making $1 million, and then you have Jennifer Aniston making 500,000, like that is insane to me. Now I know Jim Carrey or whatever is the main focus of the movie. Like I'm actually thinking of an actual movie. I know he's the main focus of the movie, but Jennifer Aniston is also Jennifer Aniston. She's also, this kind of like not a secondary character, but whatever. She's an important character too. Why is she only making $500,000? Like as an example, like why is that? Like that's insane to me as well.
Yeah, she's just doing as much as the work as the other actors doing. So
yeah, and I know like Jim Carrey, like he's been acting a long time and whatever. Has quite an extensive career. At the time that he would have. I'm talking Bruce Almighty, if anyone doesn't realize, but like he had an extensive career at that point that he did Bruce Almighty. So did Jennifer Aniston in a different way. Like she also did, and it's just. She deserves to make something similar to that, and that's actually something I spoiler alert, we probably will talk about this in a future episode.
Yeah,
but talking about like Scream, when they were doing the new Screams and changing how they were doing it, but still wanting to bring in those those original characters in. Neve Campbell ended up not coming back because she wasn't gonna be paid what she felt she deserved. And why is that? The franchise would not have survived or been anything without her. Like it's just, again, that doesn't make any sense to me. And now the fans are losing out on having her on. And we just lost Dewey. He just got killed in every one of the movies. So we're losing original characters. The only one we have left is Courtney Cox. We could have had her too. So it's like, yes, I understand that maybe you don't want to give her I don't know what she's asking for. But I get that to an extent. Because you also have to think about the fan base as well. And this is what the fan base wants. The fan base wants to see her. But anyway.
Okay, yeah. Before we move on to another question, I have another question. Do you guys feel like race plays a factor in this too?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think we're all in agreement here. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's a good question to ask. It's also silly, but yet very, very much self-explanatory that as a person of color, Indigenous, we have to fight and argue, and we have to work 10 times harder to feel noticed, as well, even to expect a pay increase. Because God forbid, don't a lighter skin tone will get more attention, but we as I'm brown skin, so a brown skinned woman, we would have to, again, like I said, do the work 10 times harder to be acknowledged. You know, even sometimes, even if you work 10 times harder, you may not even get acknowledged either way. So
Yeah.
that, yes, it's a huge part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. That's the thing too. Like, even with the example I gave with me wanting to get my first pay raise, the significant one, that friend of mine, she is Caucasian and I'm obviously Black. And that also made me feel like, and I know she had like an agency work with her because they got her through an agency. But it's like, okay, but I gave a range and my range was this to this. And you gave me the least end of what I was asking for. And then here comes this other person who's, you know, I'm moving off reception. She's coming on and doing what I was doing. And she's making 10,000 more than I was. How does that work? When I also, like I said, I was doing more than her. I was doing all of these things that slowly they had to take away from her because she wasn't doing it right, or she wasn't retaining the information, or she wasn't whatever. And I'm like, what the hell is happening here?
Right.
But yes, and we actually touched on this in a previous episode where we were talking about the fact that, yes, Black people or colored people have a different journey on getting a job, getting the money they deserve. We have to work, like Romona said, 10 times harder to get what we deserve. It's just unfortunately how it is. But that's all I have.
So Ramona's gonna go right now.
Okay.
I'd like to thank her for, even coming on to the podcast. So
Thanks, Romona.
Thank you. I enjoy hearing from you ladies and hope to hear from you soon.
Yes.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So, where am I? Question number 5 or 4, right?
5, I think, yeah.
5? Okay. So, going on to the next question. What are the most effective ways to counteract the negative stereotypes of feminism, especially in the workplace? So we're going back to the workplace again.
Okay. So the negative stereotypes.
Yes.
With feminism. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, feminism itself, there's a spectrum, right? There's like in every political what's that word? Opinion that people have. There's left, right, middle. So there is a more like extreme side. There is more of a balanced side. I think understanding that it is a spectrum, and there's different groups and there's different areas of feminism, is understanding that. So that being a feminist doesn't mean it's their negative assumptions. It's not black and white. I think with any type of discourse, it's not black and white. So understanding that and understanding that there's different movements, and like it could just be like, we don't always have to overcomplicate certain topics, certain conversations. And I think that's like the negative assumption people have about feminism is like, it's like, oh, we want to do this or I don't even know what kind of negative assumptions people have, because like I do block them out at this time of my life. Like my tolerance is so low nowadays, and it just could be just from
worse.
No, I'm getting better, Tanyka. Don't say that.
I'm saying your tolerance level just gets worse because you're just like, I have no patience for anything.
Yeah.
But,
No, I hear you. A side note, I've recently come to learn that I thought I had really good level of patience, and it got brought to my attention because I think what I did is I combined patience and tolerance together. And like recently I separated the two terms, and I realized I have probably 5% of patience, but I have a lot of tolerance.
Yeah.
And
I would agree with that.
yeah, I that's something new I learned about myself on a side note. Anyway, back to this feminism conversation. Yeah, just understanding that it's not black and white. And everyone always wants to harp on the negative, the negative terms and negative assumptions because of social media. And obviously the type of people they're getting their information from, aka those terrible podcasts. I don't even know their names. Again, I blocked them out.
Misinformation?
I think so. I don't even know. I know there's two.
No, I'm just saying that they're just saying misinformation here and there.
Oh yeah, 100%. So anyways, I'm going on a spiel, but I forgot the main point of my of my spiel. So Tanyka, take it over.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I feel like, again, just kind of going back to, it really just depends on who you're dealing with, which man you're dealing with. Because I feel like having these negative connotations when it comes to feminism, that doesn't just extend into the workplace. You can kind of tell just based on how someone is with you as their employee and how they probably just are in everyday life. But I think a lot of the time, I'm going to be honest, and maybe this is controversial, but I feel like a lot of the time the feminism issues come from other women, not so much the men, because it's kind of like, if you don't have their same views of, just, take that bra off and just whip it around or something, then you're just kind of being like, well, you're not feminist enough. And it's just like,
yeah,
but just like with religion, in a sense, I know, kind of extreme, but just because I'm a person who respects women, or I'm, use feminists or whatever, doesn't mean that I have to have the same views as you. Similarly with religion, if it's because I might be Catholic or Christian, if I'm not Christian enough for you, doesn't mean I'm not. Like, that's the thing. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is a lot of the times it's the other women who have those extreme views on what being a feminist is.
Yeah.
Everyone's outlook is different. Everyone's outlook is different. I'm the kind of person who believes that all women should have the same rights as men. I'm of that stance, but I'm also of the stance of, I don't believe a woman should be free to, like, if they decide they want to wear something really skimpy and just be like, well, a man shouldn't be staring at me anyway because I'm not dressing for them. I understand that, and I on the one side agree with that, but unfortunately we have men who are pigs and are going to view you in that way and are going to do things because they think they can. So we still have to protect ourselves. So like, it just depends on like where you are on that spectrum, like Sharon said.
Yeah.
Because I have my views, you have your views when it comes to that.
Yeah. And I honestly, it comes from recognizing that there's, like the spectrum, like there's 3 different, like feminism theories, right? And like you touch upon that, Tanyka. Some have different, ideas of, what's important to them. Others have, a different idea. And so like when it comes to the workplace, for example, a lot of times I feel like when men bring it up, like, oh, like, so like, are you a feminist? And then I already know, like, oh, they're just thinking about like the radical feminism of what they see on the internet. And then I'm just like, yeah, I am. Are you? And then they're like, oh, I'm not a feminist, but I do believe in such and such and such. And I'm like, okay, so you're a feminist. Like, and then they get so offended that I say that, because then they're like, no, because I don't think of this as this. And I'm like, well, do you realize there's different types. Like there's different theories, there's different understandings and movements. And they're like, no. And I'm like, again, Google is free. Like, please take advantage, look it up, like figure it out, fact check. People don't fact check anymore.
No, this one's going to be easy to them, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the workplace, like, honestly, like, I think, again, I'm simplifying a lot of things that are very nuanced and very complex. But again, I think we really have to go back to the basics when we first have these conversations initially, like, especially when you're meeting someone new.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't go straight up into like the complex and theories that I can. I will with my friends, and that's why sometimes they're annoyed of me, because, like, you know, they always give me that look like, oh, Sharon's definitely going to be saying something now. But then in workplaces, I'm much more base level. And it comes down to one main thing, and it's just respecting the person, you know, just respect.
Yeah,
like,
you
don't
have to be a feminist.
Yeah,
or
like
whatever. Just respect the person.
Yeah. But like, that's the core of it all. Respecting women, respect their experience, their identity, respect their, you know, their strengths, respect everything. Like, you don't have to agree to respect them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could still, like, help like whatever, like assist a woman or acknowledge a woman or respect their form of empowerment. Mm-hmm. So, like, say, for example, like you said, like, if they want to free the nips, all right, if that's your form, that's your form. But, like, I won't be tagging along.
I won't be freeing the nips when I have to go to work.
I mean, yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, not out and about. And that's just, you know, whatever. My little perspective on it. So, like, I don't really have to join you, but I'll respect you on it, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, more power to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's their expression. That's their expression. And my expression is just, like, being able to, you know, speak up when I want to speak up and not feel like I'm going to be penalized for it. Right. So that's my level of respect. Respect me in terms of, like, my opinion. And if you don't agree with it, sure, but maybe you should learn to understand it. It starts from there, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So I have a little bit of an outside question. So, do you women get offended when a man calls you a female?
Yes. Don't call me a female. I'm a woman.
Okay.
You don't have to say female. Like, and I see that all the time in, like, reality television, especially 90 Day Fiancé, where they will be like, and I think, honestly, I'm going to say this right now, it's the women who do it to each other. It's not so much the men. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because one of, like, my podcasts that I listen to, they will say, like, females, and that is actually them mimicking another woman about other women, because she's like, I don't want you hanging around other females talking to her fiance. And it's like, no. I'd rather you call me a bitch, honestly, in that situation.
Tanyka.
Don't call me. I'm serious. I'm actually serious. Wow. I'd rather you do that. Listen, if you know me enough, you know I have no issues with someone calling me a bitch. Do you want to know why? I own it. Because I am one. I've always been one. But I'm only one when I need to be. So I own that. Call me that. Don't call me a female, though. Don't call me that. Because it just feels, it just feels weird.
I don't think it's just genders that are just saying, it's society as well. So, like, basically you have, like, well, there's some washrooms that will say female, male.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And then you have the news anchors that said, this female is doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know? And then, you know.
It's a scientific term, obviously, and I understand that. But I think it depends on the context. Like, I have seen, like news reports if someone's been, like, attacked or murdered or whatever, and they say, we found, like, this female body or whatever. Like, that I understand. And I think I actually tolerate that more just because if you are talking about, like, a body in particular, like, I do understand you need to be you do kind of need to take that in a sciencey way, and I get it.
Right.
But when you're talking to each other, talking about each other, it's just like, no, I'm a woman. And yes, even the bathroom situation, I haven't seen that a lot, but I have seen that where it says female or male, and it's like, but also I'm going to actually give you a question here a little bit.
Okay.
Are we doing that because of the fact that we are in this society of non-binary? Is that why it's happening? Because that, I don't know then how you counteract that. Because if we are trying to, because we have to remember there's a difference between sex and gender. Sex, you refer to as female or male. That is your sex. But your gender is different. Yeah. So I do wonder if that is why we're going from the sex perspective instead of the gender perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think women do that awfully a lot. That's one of my experiences. When I say it towards, like, this one time I had a bad experience on Instagram. I call a female woman, she got offended, and I was like, what? You're basically, and then I talked to another woman who was not offended when I said you're a female, and she was okay with it. So, like, I don't know, maybe it's because it's different women who just see.
I would just as from my perspective, don't call a woman a female. You're better off not calling her a female.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't know. It's just it feels cold in a sense too.
I know, but I maybe because I'm around I would say the ecosystem or society, because I don't mean to be, like, mean when I say the word female. It's just like,
no, I know you're not being mean.
Yeah.
But actually, no, I would say no, it's not the norm. It feels like as of late, we're just starting to call women females.
Right.
And I think also too, what you have to take into consideration, if calling someone, it does, even if your intention is for not to be rude or mean or anything, but it does feel flippant. So I think don't refer to someone as a female. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of, like, a different word that kind of has that same feel to it, but I can't think of it right now. But it just feels very flippant. So I personally would just steer clear of referring to any woman as a female.
So, okay, here I'll throw back another question. Why are men so cool when they're called males?
Are they?
They don't care. Yeah, we don't care.
Because I think that's exactly it. Men don't care. Men think we also have to think, like, men think very differently than women do.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
We just that's just how it is. We think very differently than men do. And I think that's exactly it. I think men can just let things run off their back to a certain extent, depending on what words you're using. But that's what I think it comes down to. I just think men just think, whatever. Like, I don't care. I think that's basically what it comes down to.
I think what it is, honestly, I think what it is. So I don't really have much of an opinion on this because I think it's something that I don't really. I mean, to be fair, I didn't really notice much of, like, the female woman thing. I don't experience that. And then also this new, like, the new way to kind of, like what Tanyka was saying, this non-binary society we are in now. It kind of, like, I really don't know when it is right to refer to something as, or someone has female versus someone has woman, but the whole female male thing, I think men don't really, how I see it is the way I see the female woman thing, where, like, I personally haven't experienced that. So I think men are, like, is the same way for men, where they don't care because they don't necessarily experience that as much as women have. Like, you never really hear, like, someone saying, oh, this is just how males are. Usually men are referred to as males in like medical language, in medical terms, or in news, or
Yeah,
and
that's
just in
I was
their
confused because I'm like, I've
the
never heard a
language.
man be referred to as male.
Yeah, like the language is more so used in the right context when it comes to
Mhm.
referring a man as male. It's used in a scientific context. It's used to it's used in the same way that it's defined as. Where I think the term female is now being used not as the way it's being defined as. And that's where the problem comes from, because like it's so like they switch up so quickly of the female versus woman language. I think when they're trying to generalize certain opinions or certain ideologies, they'll say like females. Like
Right.
it's just as if like it's just part of us. Like it's like a female gene. It's like a species, like a female species is doing such and such.
Yeah.
As if like they're all the same because they're all females, and it's like it just comes from more of like a more like scientific way. And so that's why I think like men don't really take note of that, because or don't care, is because it's really not used in the same term as it is used for women.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm surprised that Tanyka prefers to be called a bitch than a
Well, yeah, but
female
that's
dog.
but that's how I've always been. That's not something that just came about. I've always been that way, and I just kind of stuck with that.
I mean, it's quite shocking that like you really hate the word female. Like I was just like, whoa.
I just think it's like, and I think I'm going to piggyback on what you said. It's all about the context.
Yeah.
If a doctor's calling me a female, that's fine. But
Yeah.
if you, this random person, are calling me, why?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of that?
Yeah. If like a
feels
research
different.
paper is saying like female and male, like, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, so we have the next question here. Who is the most influential woman you can know, and how does she inspire you?
Who wants to go first?
Oh my gosh, I had to think about this.
Okay, I'll give mine because obviously I knew the question, so I had to think about them.
Oh, lucky you.
I know, right? I'm actually going to say, like, unfortunately we wanted to have Letitia on, but she couldn't come on. But I wanted to say both my mom and her. Just to kind of put context, these are both women who, like my mom, especially single mother, who still, yes, raised her children, but also still made sure they went to school, finished school, get work, and work their asses off to provide not only for themselves but for their children too. And that's for me, that's inspiring, because I mean, like, Letitia did the same thing. She didn't let having her daughter stop her from finishing school and getting a job, and you know, her daughter is thriving and all of that. And then when it comes to my mom, I think, like, I am who I am because of my mom.
Mhm.
I'm where I am because of my mom. I am who I am because of my mom. And yeah, so I think those are my inspirations.
Nice. Okay.
Sharon, do you have one now?
Wow,
You have one?
Tanyka. I feel like I'm gonna have such a cop-out answer because I don't have one. And that's just because like any female, like here I'm using female. Oh my god, after our last question.
You know what?
Like now I'm thinking about it. Like now I'm really conscious about it. The women in my life, they all have impacted me in such different ways and in different areas. Like for example, I have such a core like group of like a lot of beautiful best friends I have. And they're like 5, 6, I say 6 people. And each of them brings different value into my life. Some of them are the reasons why I've excelled so well academically. because they made sure I stood by my business and had no one distract me, no one come in the way of where I wanted to be and my goals. I have girlfriends who continue to motivate me to be successful and what successful looks for me. And then I have a core group of girlfriends that just help me on a more personal level in terms of healing and loving myself and seeing the value I bring. Because a lot of times I don't think I bring a lot as much as as they say I do into, their lives. So they kind of just remind me of that. And they, I met each one of them in different stages of my life, and they've all impacted me and continue to impact, and influence the way I live my life. So my besties, all of them, they're literally like family to me, especially when family's not around as much. So yeah.
Oh, pretty cool. All right.
Yeah.
Next question. What impact does challenging genders stereotypes have on the younger generation?
I honestly think that the younger generation, from me, so I'm gonna say the Gen Zs, I feel like they are definitely badasses in ways that they need to be. Sometimes they're annoying, but they're badasses in the ways that they need to be. And I feel like they're not letting certain things drag them down in the same way that maybe the generations before them. So honestly, I feel like they're breaking down barriers that, for example, millennial or Gen X's just never did or ever maybe even thought they could.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way that, Gen Z is changing a lot. Even I would say, like the younger millennials have changed a lot
The
too.
millennials,
So.
yeah.
Yeah, so
unfortunately I'm not a younger millennial.
Yeah. So Sharon, do you have anything to add on?
No, I think I agree with you guys, and I think that's one of the perks of social media. It's like it's more, I guess, like millennial had to just do it like without it being showcased, and then Gen Z has like an opportunity to like showcase it. So I think to an advantage, that's one of the perks of social media, is just like seeing.
Yeah, which I agree with. I mean, we didn't have social media. I mean, I think the first time Facebook came about was what, 2000 and I was in 2006,
5, and at the end of 5, I believe.
It wasn't popular then either. Like I'm talking the popularity of it.
Yeah, it was MySpace. We had MySpace.
We did have MySpace. We definitely have. We all
had Messenger too.
We all had Tom with our friend.
Yeah.
But even then, like, it was still in like high school. Like, for me, it was like 15, 16. And I don't think MySpace was one thing, but MySpace for me wasn't so I could connect with other people or whatever. I just went on MySpace because I could put like music and stuff in there or whatever.
Right.
Like that was my focus with MySpace. I didn't really actually talk to people on MySpace. But Facebook, it was like, I don't think I got Facebook until I was 17 was the first time I got Facebook. So yes, my generation had to go through most of their lives, or half their lives anyway, without having social media or having that. We had the internet, but we didn't have that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In what way are educational curriculum being adapted to teach about gender diversity?
Now that's a tough one, especially for us because we've been out of school for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, gender diversity doesn't just mean man and woman. It's also the non-binary aspect of things too. So that's changing drastically in ways that I am not aware of. Like I haven't been in traditional school or really saying elementary or high school since 2009. So, oh God, guys, I just aged myself. But I don't know from today what they're doing.
Right.
But oh, this is tough. I feel like it's not talked about enough in terms of, it's not taught enough. I think the only time it's really ever discussed is in like a sex ed situation, or if you did biology, it can even be kind of talked about a little bit in biology as well. Those are the times where like you're actually hearing about these kinds of things.
Right.
It's like school wasn't meant to talk about those things for me, from my perspective. And again, the only time you heard about it, like I said, was when you are talking about sex ed. And if you are a person who has gone to Catholic school, hi, me, I'm the problem. You really, you too, Mikel, but you really don't really, like, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about things that are important to talk about. We barely come out knowing how to do our taxes. Like, I don't have faith in the curriculum.
True. Yeah. I don't know if there's any changes in the curriculum itself in terms of like required teachings or lessons. I know there's like some changes that they're making to elementary school, and it's still being like figured out because a lot of parents have problems with it.
Yes.
So it's I don't know, on an elementary level. I know when I was in high school, it wasn't necessarily a requirement, whereas like, but it was like they had more elective options to learn about it. And it's kind of wild if you think about it. Like I didn't know what exactly discrimination, prejudice, racism, how it looked until grade 9 when I went to like an after school program. And I did it because I had to get my 40 hours. So I was like, this is a good start. So anyways, that
you
really...
also were in a Catholic school.
Oh my God, yeah. I was.
So you said the 40 hours. Oh my God, okay, well.
Yeah. And then, so anyways, that really sparked my interest where I'm like, oh my God, this is like literally in our everyday life. Like prejudice, it's in Disney movies. Discrimination is like everywhere. I'm like, what? Wait, I just knew about racism. Like, what is all this? And then that really opened up like me seeking out the elective. So we had social challenge and change, which really directed the rest of my life. So having the class challenge and change, it spoke like it was just this class specifically to talk about everything in society and like the theories and intersectionality and all those kind of stuff. And it really opened my eyes where I'm like, how can I be that person to speak about exactly what this class was about? And then that led me to my undergrad degree in social work. And then obviously I sought out more of these classes and more of these lectures about this topic. And then anyways, somehow I ended up being a lawyer. But again, if the opportunity didn't present itself, I don't even think I would have followed this this pathway. And that's kind of like the disadvantage of it being an elective and not a requirement. Not a lot of people will be open to, it won't be open for them to this opportunity. And so I don't know if this has changed since I've been in high school. But I do hope is integrated more into the required curriculum of our school board.
Yeah, and that's the same thing too with me. Like even like doing Black History, which I've talked about during our Black History Month series, but I wouldn't have even thought to do that if it wasn't an elective, and that was in college. But I had these choices, and I'm like, well, everything is so similar to what I'm already doing or what I've already done. This looks different, so I'll do that. And I don't know if like I would have had the knowledge otherwise if it wasn't for that. And that's the other thing too, kind of adding to what you said about high school electives. The electives that are available to kids now than they were when I was in school has changed drastically, which is great.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would change though for it to be required. I don't know if that ever would change, because especially in high school, you're told these are the credits you need. You need to have 30 credits to pass high school. And with that, here are the things that you need to do that are required for you to do to be added to those 30 credits. How would that change? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if, you have to have math for 3 years or whatever the hell it is. And how does that change though? I don't know if there's room for that, for more things that are important to just everyday life is ever going to be included in those 30 credits that you need.
I mean, I think it changes from the top of the school board, right?
Yes, but that's what I'm trying to say. But where is the room for that to change? Even it doesn't matter who can change it. How does that change happen? Because we're of this mindset of you need to know about parabolas. You're going to use this in everyday life, but no, you're not. So I just don't know how the views change in order for those things to change. I don't know how that happens.
Okay. All right. 2 more questions, ladies, and then you guys can breathe. How do gender stereotypes affect mental health, and what can be done to address this?
I didn't think about this question. I just think that it depends on your life and how your life looks. Like if you are a woman that is either in like say an abusive relationship, or you have people who oppress you or whatever, then yes, those things can affect your mental health. And I think really the only thing to fix that or combat that is A, remove those people out of your life if possible, and 2, therapy. Therapy is really the only thing that I think can at least give you the tools to deal with those things. But if you're like someone like me who doesn't really deal with the people in my life making me see my gender as an obstacle, or at least are encouraging me that my gender is not an obstacle, then my mental health struggles are different and look different. So I think it really just depends on your life and how that looks for you and how like that affects your mental health. Because I think there's so much kind of to that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about like, so just to clarify, we're talking about if I had gender struggles.
I think we're talking generally. But if you do,
like a female, here I am using female. Oh my gosh!
You know what?
Please beep this out.
See? It's not me.
No.
It's okay. It's all good. I'm sure the audience will understand.
It's just like I said in that previous question, I didn't recognize it or realize I was doing it until now. I'm consciously aware. So again, this conversation is really good. But like we're talking about in general, like a woman's struggle with gender, in terms of gender and how it looks
Yeah.
to their mental health?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a roller coaster, for sure. There's times where you're gonna feel like you're alone. There's times where you're gonna feel like you're put into a corner. There's times where you're gonna be feeling burnt out. There's times where you're gonna just be angry and want to give up. And then there's times where you're sick of being this spokesperson. But then there's times where you're like, no, I need to speak out about this matter. It's just a wave. It comes and goes. And I mean, therapy's great. Counseling is amazing. But again, there's another issue of financial stability. And if you can't, afford going to counseling, seeing a therapist, seeing a social worker, it makes things more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And like the more you're consciously aware, the more strong the struggle might get. That's why sometimes ignorance is bliss. And so you choose that route. And then sometimes you're like, no, like, why am I, you kind of then decide to go do something else. So it's a constant battle is what I'm trying to say. And it does affect someone's mental health. And I guess the biggest thing is the environment you put yourself in. So a lot, people who are, God's strongest soldiers, they could go into an environment where it's male dominant and conquer. And then there's others who literally could barely survive and they just don't want to be put into that space. And so they go into an environment where it's not male dominant, or it's 50-50, or there's more female support. So again, like, it really depends on the person and it depends on their stage of life. I definitely have always been in spaces where it's been male dominant for the past few years. And then now I'm in a space where there's I feel like I have such a breather, where there's things where I've always put a shield up. And now I'm working in, like, for example, my team is like mainly all female. And like, we could have these conversations and I won't feel like I'm, risking my space or my professionalism when I'm having these conversations about gender, and about these difficulties and about these, gender and race and other oppressions someone might be facing. And having these open conversations is like a breath of fresh air, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is great. I don't have to think too much about what I'm going to say or how I say it or how I articulate it or who's around. And so again, it just, like Tanyka said, it's based on like the stage of your life and like where you are in your environment. And sometimes just having that female support to just be like, no, you're not silly for thinking this way, or feeling this way. And having that validation is really helpful. And so I think the key is, having that validation here and there, and it helps you kind of energize your battery to then go back to fighting if you need to.
Yeah.
Good answers, ladies.
Yeah.
Great answers. So the final question: do you think a woman will be president or prime minister in the next decade, or possibly sooner? Why or not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we all kind of hope that one day that will happen. But listen, it took, when did America get formed? Come on, Hamilton, come into me. What was it? Was 1750, what was it? 50, 70 something, whatever. It took nearly 2 decades to get our first Black president. 2 decades, 2 centuries to get our first Black president. I don't know if we would ever see a female president, at least in the next decade, or a prime minister.
I mean, Hillary Clinton came close.
She did, but then look how that turned out. You had an orange Oompa Loompa literally like using her gender, in a sense, to prevent that from happening. Like, I really feel like, because he's a sexist, he's misogynist, he's racist, he's all the things, right? Now, I know there's some issues with Hillary Clinton, but there's also issues with Donald Trump, I think, even more so. Sorry, guys, I said his name, Oompa Loompa. I think, like, there's so many issues with him, even before he was chosen as president. Like, it's just, yeah, I don't know. And to kind of just add to that, I haven't even seen a male black prime minister here yet. They've all been white. So I'm really not confident that we would even see a woman as prime minister in our country.
I mean, you see a few candidates here and there.
Yeah, but they're not. It's not happening. Even in the UK, they had a female. Sorry, no, I'm saying it. They had.
There you go.
Shut up. We had a prime minister that was a woman, Margaret Thatcher. So it's just like we had that. For Thatcher, is that her name? I think I got that right. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The Iron Lady. We had her, and that we haven't had it since. We didn't have it before.
Right.
So they've even had that, but we have not, and America hasn't. So I'm personally, maybe that's just me being negative, I have no confidence that we'll ever see that, at least in the next decade.
Yeah. I think I'm in agreement. Like, I think all in all, a lot of people don't really see women as leaders yet. And that also stems from people's class and people's race as well. That comes into play on their opinions. And yeah, like you guys were saying, we honestly haven't even seen any person of color be prime minister. And that's been a huge like battle. And you know, like there's people who freely say like, oh, for example, like Jagdeep saying it's never going to be prime minister because of the way he looks and his identity. You know, people
that's true, and it's
blatantly
unfortunate.
say that. Yeah, they're like, oh, as long as he's the leader of NDP is not going to win. So we're still battling like race, male, like you know, men as leaders and their race, let alone add another obstacle in the way, and unfortunately that's gender. So
which is insane to me, because we are a country that thrives on the fact that we are multicultural, we're a melting pot, and yet America did better than we did for both terms. Obama had both of his terms.
Yeah.
And we haven't even seen that happen here.
No.
So it's unfortunate, because his views, the NDP's views, like his views are, there's nothing wrong with his views. But you're right, because of the fact that he is not white, the fact that he, even his religion, the fact that he also, I don't want to say the wrong terminology, the fact that he wears like a
turban.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That all of those things would prevent him from ever becoming prime minister. And that's sad.
I mean, Canada has, like, we have so much racism. It's just hidden. It's not in your face like it is in the States. It's exactly
true.
That's the difference. So yeah, no progress. Oh no.
I 100% agree with that, ladies.
Well,
so,
I think that's it.
That's it. You guys can drink your water, celebrate.
Yeah. I'm going to reflect on the woman and female thing. So,
well.
Yeah. So, so this ends the Women's History Month episode 23. The Next Tape podcast is available on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called solo.to, Next Tape Podcasts. Where else are we at, Tanyka?
We also have Facebook and Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and we have TikTok and Twitter and a Next Take Pod.
And also you can contact us in our email at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. So I learned a lot about, women on this episode.
Mhm.
So very educational. I was basically the listener. I didn't try to interrupt too much. Hopefully I did a good job, ladies.
The man
Yes.
stayed in the corner. A lot of women
They
No,
say
you did a great job guiding the conversation.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a stereotype out there that us men don't listen very much. So
Oh, you don't. It's fine.
so yeah. So Sharon, thank you for being on this episode. I appreciate it. Your
Of
time.
course.
Thank you,
thanks.
Sharon.
Thanks so much for having me. This was a blast. It really had my brain working on a Sunday morning, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Nice. Okay. Romona, thank you. I know you're not here, but thank you for sharing your time to being on this episode. Yeah. I think that's it. You have anything else, Tanyka?
No, I definitely don't. I think, Sharon, we should definitely have you on again.
Yeah, I'd be
Definitely.
happy to. Yeah.
She's a hoot. And if anyone wants to hear more from Sharon and you are a Love is Blind fan, you can definitely hop over to my podcast, Reality Tea Times 2, where we are talking about Love is Blind and all the shenanigans. And guess what? I have more that I have to say, but I'm saving it until we do the more episodes. Sure, I'm going to blow your mind.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh. Yeah. This season definitely has a lot of hot takes. So if you want to hear my hot takes, go on over.
Okay. So I'm Mikel and
I'm Tanyka.
And we are out until next week. Peace.
Bye.